Welcome to this ultimate guide for Zed. I'm Zoose and this guide contains everything you need to succeed. Zed has always been one of my favourite AD mids, ever since the Faker vs Ryu epic 1v1 fight. Even though he is hard to master, it is well worth the rewards. All the info has been taken from the best pro and solo queue players. There's plenty of gameplay examples to observe and learn from. Here are the timestamps if you want to watch a specific section, but there is plenty of important info throughout the whole guide. It is a pretty long video, so remember to add it to a playlist or bookmark it so you can come back to it when it's convenient for you. Zed's passive, Contempt for the Weak, deals 6 to 10% of targets' max HP through basic attacks when they are below 50% HP. This is perfect for assassinating and finishing off fights. His Q, Razor Shuriken, is a skill shot that throws a blade forward, dealing 80 damage. It is reduced to 60% damage after the first target hit. Before we mention W, let's look at his E, Shadow Slash, which does 80 damage in a small circle around him. Now his W, Living Shadow, creates a shadow clone of Zed on the first cast, which cannot move, but you can activate your Q and E. If he casts W again, he will swap to the shadow location and another shadow will take his place. This means you can now cast 2 Qs and 2 Es. And if you hit an enemy with the Shadow E, they are slowed. As a melee champ, this makes W great for long range poke, gap closing, and escapes. Every enemy hit by his E reduces the cooldown of W by 2 seconds. Finally, his ultimate, Death Mark, is what truly provokes fear into enemies. First cast on a target, Zed will vanish for less than a second, appearing behind an enemy and spawning a shadow in his place that lasts 6 seconds. Once the target has been marked, for the next 3 seconds, Zed can move through units and all damage dealt within this time will be stored and then a percentage will be detonated. Ahri does 25% of all damage dealt on its pop at level 1, 40% at level 2, and 55% when it's fully leveled. You can cast it again half a second after your first cast to swap places with the shadow. With your W plus R shadow spawned, you can activate 3 Qs and Es at once, and we'll cover how to use these abilities optimally in combos. As for leveling abilities, you want to max Q first, E second, and W last. Always put a point in R when you can. The most optimal rune taken on Zed is Electrocute. This rune fits into his burst and assassin playstyle. Attacking enemies with autos or abilities 3 times within 3 seconds activates some extra damage. It can be procced in lane safely with a W plus E and landing 2 Qs, or if you can't land the 2 Qs, a single Q plus an auto. Hail of Blades isn't exactly optimal, but it can still work. With extra attack speed, Zed can not only get in more autos while the target is death marked, he can get that extra damage from his very important auto passive. I would rarely recommend this rune, as Electrocute is way more consistent in lane since it won't be easy to simply get into melee range and auto most mid laners. Dark Harvest also deserves a mention. This can be viable in extreme cases, where you gain plenty of stacks for late game. Again, I would not recommend it since Electrocute is way more consistent early to mid, which is where you really want to snowball and abuse your power with Zed. The first keystone is Sudden Impact. You'll gain lethality and magic pen after using W or R. This slightly helps penetrate armor early on. Taste of Blood can be viable if you want some HP sustain when you damage enemies with an ability. The second keystone is Eyeball Collection, since it helps Zed snowball, gaining AD per champ and ward takedown. Ghost Pourer is also just as viable, helping you maintain vision control. You want to really make use of that extra AD you gain by placing the Pourer in the enemy territory, which is generally safe to do on Zed with his threat and escape potential. The final keystone in Domination is a close call between Ravenous Hunter and Ultimate Hunter. Ravenous is the safer and more consistent rune, as it will help you maintain HP throughout the game, especially when fully stacked. Ultimate Hunter will of course help you reduce your ult cooldown, encouraging you to go for more ult plays. This choice is mostly up to you. If you want some extra safety, take Ravenous. Want to ult slightly more often, take Ultimate Hunter. Relentless Hunter isn't that bad, so if you plan on constantly roaming and moving around the map, the out of combat movement speed may be optimal. There are quite a few second path options. From Precision, the most optimal keystones are Triumph and Coup de Grace. Triumph will restore 12% of your missing HP after a takedown, which can potentially save you in close fights. The extra 20 gold isn't much, but it can stack up in those huge killfest games. Coup de Grace helps Zed deal 7% more damage to enemies below 40% HP, perfect for his assassin playstyle. You'll even gain some extra AD for a few seconds after a takedown. I wouldn't really recommend any other keystones from Precision. From Sorcery there are a few options. Nullifying Orb can help you against some AP champs, but you can always buy a Hex Drinker. Nimbus Cloak is viable. With the extra movement after you've ulted, you'll be able to stick to targets, helping you get off more autos and abilities. It can even help with escapes. You will most likely be purchasing a Yumu's Ghostblade, so with that active, this may not be entirely necessary. Transcendence is another option. Apart from providing 10 CDR at level 10, it will turn excess CDR into AD. This can actually work pretty well with Zed since he does build a lot of CDR items, and you can check the item sections for more info. Absolute Focus is also viable, and I would recommend you take Taste of Blood plus Ravenous to help you maintain above 70% HP to make use of the AD you gain from this keystone. Scorch for the extra damage from your poke in lane, and Gathering Storm for that huge AD spike late game. From Inspiration, Magical Footwear is cost effective if you can sacrifice the movement speed early on. Cosmic Insight is viable as Zed makes use of all the CDR stats this provides. And finally, from Resolve, Bone Plating can help reduce damage in those heavy poke lanes. Overgrowth will help you gain some extra permanent HP, and Demolish is great, especially since Zed has great split pushing potential. If you're unsure, since I've mentioned plenty of options, Triumph and Coup de Grace is the best in almost every situation, and you can test all the other runes if you have certain matchups. The safest start for Zed is a Longsword plus 3 H-pots. The Longsword will help start his major buy, and the 3 HP pots will restore HP against most matchups. If your laner is a low threat, take a refillable potion as it's extremely cost effective. A Serrated Dirk is a great first back item, but in some cases you want to rush Hex Drinker since it provides a magic shield when you're low HP. With a Serrated Dirk, you'll want to build either into Duskblade or Yumu's Ghostblade. You want to buy both of these eventually, but the order is up to you. Duskblade offers more burst potential, applying a slow and extra damage on your next auto. It also allows you to disable wards and dominate vision control. Yumu's Ghostblade, same AD and CDR with 3 less lethality, has a movement speed active buff, helping you gap close against certain enemies. The out of combat movement speed can help with roams. Again, it doesn't really matter which order, so pick the first one depending on your situation. As for second tier boots, Merc Treads will help you mostly against AP champs, but the Tenacity will be effective against CC stacked teams, as CC will be the main obstacle for Zed when going for kills. Ninja Tabis are better for heavy AD teams. The reduced damage from autos is useful, especially against ADCs. Mob Boots is less favourable, but it's still viable, assuming you want to constantly roam and move around the map. You'll be much squishier with these boots, but they're a little cheaper. By the way, you can purchase your second tier boots after your Duskblade or Yumu's. For example, you can get Duskblade, Merc Treads, then Yumu's. The third major buy is Black Cleaver. During mid game, teams will start stacking armor, and if there are 1 or more tanks, you'll have a hard time being effective. With 6 Black Cleaver stacks and lethality, you'll have a much better chance at penetrating enemies. The little movement speed buff is a nice extra. 20% CDR will cap you at 40% pretty early on. If tanks aren't a problem, Edge of Night is a great option. The Nightfield active, which blocks the next enemy ability, may help Zed ignore some hard CC and increase his chance of popping a squishy champ. You want to finish off your Maw if you purchase the Hex Drinker. Just know that the 10% CDR will be useless if you have a Black Cleaver, since you'll have 50% CDR at this point. You may want to think about getting Transcendence, as it will help make use of that excess CDR. Guardian Angel is best for those mid to late game teamfights, as the chance of dying is high. But with this GA passive, you'll revive, and as long as you have your team for backup, you can finish off fights. You can always purchase a stopwatch earlier if you feel like it can save you in game changing moments, and then of course finish it off into GA. If armor is a huge problem, you'll need Lord Dominik's for the armor pen. Lord Reminder is slightly better than Lord Dominik's against heavy healing team comps. There are quite a few final options depending on your situation. Death Stance provides nice lifesteal, perhaps necessary against heavy poke comps. The passive may save you from getting bursted as long as you keep attacking for the 15% heal. QSS can be purchased early against some hard CCs like Malz and Liss ults, and then finished into a Mercurial Scimitar. The lifesteal and MR will be useful. If you're extremely fed, Spear of Sojin. This is best if you didn't purchase Black Cleaver, as it provides 20% CDR. The Awakened Dragon passive synergizes well with your ult, helping you get in some more autos and spells before your Deathmark pops. Sterak's Gauge is another defensive option against burst, that still provides plenty of AD. An IE plus Phantom Dancer combo will give you 50% crit, increasing your chances of popping any squishy. This will be rare, but it's an option if there are no tanks or threats. Definitely a Smurf build. Flash is the first and best summoner spell, perfect for gap closing, escaping, dodging skill shots, and generally outplaying. The second, and probably the only other summoner spell worth taking on Zed is Ignite. The true damage and Grievous Wound will help you finish off enemies and snowball the game. Just to clarify, even if you ignite during your death mark, it will not increase the damage of the pop. So you can ignite anytime you feel is best, either early to counter the healing, or right at the end as a finisher. Other spells may seem okay, but since your main priority as an assassin is to delete enemies, none of the other summoners outweigh the benefits of Ignite. Main trade combo. W, E, Q. You want to W next to or on top of the enemy, then immediately E. This will deal damage, but most importantly, proc the slow, which will increase your chance of landing Q, or ideally 2 Qs. If you have chunked them low enough to potentially kill them, press W again and follow up with Orders and Ignite. If the enemy is in closer range, you want to try and proc 2 Es, as this will be slow. And of course your 2 Qs for optimal damage, as well as the elect proc and follow up with autos. Sometimes, if you know you're going to kill them already, you want to W, E, W, auto attack, and then Q. You still want to apply the slow from E and then immediately appear next to them to finish them off with autos and Ignite. Main optimal burst combo. R, W, E, auto attack, Q. Firstly, this combo assumes you are in deathmark range, so you don't need to use your W to gap close. Secondly, if you know they have no flashes or dashes, you can use your W for all that extra damage instead of using it to chase them down. You want to R. Once you've appeared, create a W clone next to the champ, preferably right behind where you think they'll run. E immediately, auto attack since he will be slowed and within your melee range. Then aim to hit the triple Q Shuriken blades for insane burst damage. With this much damage, you can even one-shot tankier champs. Remember to follow up with as many autos as you can get off. And the main combo with a gap closer. W to gap close, R, E, auto attack, Q. This will probably be the most common situation since squishy champs will rarely let you get close to them. Same as the previous combo, but you will sacrifice damage as you will use your W as a gap closer, so you will potentially lose an extra Q. With both of these combos mentioned, remember to return to R if you need to escape for safety or even outplay more enemies. Now juking is a bit of a mental game, and with a lot of experience you'll be able to pull off some clean jukes that will probably save your life and waste the enemy's time. So let's just go over some basics. With W and Deathmark active, Zed has some insane juking potential. A basic juke involves using your W in the opposite direction that you are walking towards. If the enemy decides to chase you, simply swap to your clone. Use it over walls, which will make it impossible for champs without dashes to chase you. Be careful with the range, as once the indicator turns red, you may no longer swap. Your Deathmark has similar potential. You can ult enemies over walls, so use this as a gap closer as well. Although you cannot choose the specific target you want to appear like W, the range on R to swap places with your clone is infinite. As you increase your confidence with Zed, you can play extremely aggressive in lane, even provoke the enemy jungler to come and gank you. You'll be able to use walls and river brushes, wasting the enemy jungler's time, and helping you soak up pressure away from your team. Let's first go over specific tips for Zed's abilities, then cover general strategy to give you an advantage. Your passive is extremely important for damage output. Try to get out as many autos before your death mark, as well as using it to finish off enemies. Your Q is going to be your main ability for last hitting minions and poke in lane. It's a skinny skill shot with a slight delay, so it may take time to consistently hit enemies in lane. Your best bet is trying to go for an enemy when they're going to auto a minion, as they'll be standing still for a slight second. You can actually brush check with Q, but you must make sure your volume is loud enough to hear the difference in sounds. It will make a slight slice sound if someone's in there. Use Duskblade's slow passive for a higher chance to land Q. Your W has a long CD early on, so it's extremely important you become accurate landing or trade combo in lane, as you'll only have a few opportunities to make the most out of it. Not only do you become vulnerable to ganks with a lack of escapes, you lose most of your trading power when it's down. Use your W right out of base to get to lane faster, as it should be off cooldown once you're back in lane. There are quite a few walls you can use W over, so try to familiarize yourself with a few thicker ones so you have it memorized the next time you need an escape route. It provides vision in brushes and over walls, so it's great to scout if the enemy is doing Baron, Dragon or Herald, and you can always follow up with a combo to go for a steal since you do plenty of burst damage. Don't level your abilities within the first minute, as if you get invaded, you can quickly level W and use it to escape. It may save you a flash. Your E, as well as your Q and autos, are great to wave clear. You can use your W to wave clear as it is faster, but only if there is no threat. You can take E at level 2 if you need help last hitting under tower, or perhaps if you can get close enough to use it in trades. As already mentioned, your Shadow E provides a useful slow, which will help land your Q and generally stick to your opponents to get in extra autos. It does decent AoE damage, so use it with W when enemies are grouped up for AoE damage and slow. Watch your enemies closely after you've ulted. If they attempt to juke your Q moving side to side, just keep walking and auto attacking them and only throw your Q right before your ult pops. They will be so busy trying to dodge your Q that they won't realize how much damage your autos actually do. If they do run in a straight line and they're easier to hit, just use your Q straight away. If they immediately flash, however, you'll only be able to throw a long range Q. Sometimes if they're low enough, you can just flash and auto attack them to death anyway. In a lot of situations, enemies will just blow their flash, so trading that with your ultimate is 100% worth, so just return to your ult shadow and go for a play in another minute or so when their flash is down. Remember, you become invulnerable for 0.75 seconds when you ult, so try to time it to dodge CC, any type of threatening skill shot, or even auto attacks. Try to always think one step ahead. The location you activate this ult could be your only form of escape once you go in deep, so use it wisely. Some general strategy that can help you. Once you've completed 1 or 2 major items, you'll be able to one-shot squishies, but they've probably picked up defensive items themselves. Constantly check the enemy items as well as keeping tabs on the summoners. Look for stopwatches, completed Zhonyas, and later game GAs. You can still aim for these targets, but you must take the items into account. Flash and other defensive summoners are also important, as you can combo accordingly. You're an assassin, so as long as you kill one important target, your job is essentially done. Don't ever be afraid to go for potentially 1 to 3 kills, even if it means you have a high chance of dying. Even if you are to die and you take out 2 to 3 enemy champs, the rest of your team can capitalize on this advantage. Sometimes you can just bait out fights, since you have 1 to 3 escapes, especially with Edge of Night. Baiting a few hard CC abilities from the enemies and just surviving can allow your team to have the upper hand. Sometimes you don't need to commit, simply zone out several squishies by running next to them. If you can zone 2 to 3 champs, your team will gain an advantage. Even if you wanted to go in against 3, you'd probably get multiple CCs thrown at you anyway, so stalling is a much better choice. You don't have mana problems like a lot of mid laners, but your energy usage must be used carefully. Try to memorize the exact energy for the main combo, which is around 165 total energy early game and 125 late game. So you want to pick Zed, but perhaps you're unsure if he fits into a certain team comp. Let's go over strengths and weaknesses to help make this decision easier. Strengths: burst. Land 3 or even just 2 Qs during your death mark and you can one-shot most champs. Mobility. With around 3 blinks in his spell rotation, he's extremely slippery, making it hard for champs to deal with. Split push threat. If you're ahead and can 1v1 most of the enemy champs, split pushing will draw in pressure and help you pick up gold from towers. Late game, you can go for game-winning backdoor plays. Takes towers fast. With plenty of AD, you take towers extremely fast if you're not dealt with. Strong roams. If you've pushed your wave or your laner isn't killable, ganking bot, top or even the jungler is an option. Juking. You have plenty of potential using 2 shadows to juke and confuse enemies. Outplay. With most of the reasons already stated, you can seriously outplay champs in 1v1, 1v2 or even more. This will depend on how fed and experienced you are. Now let's go over weaknesses and I'll quickly mention some options to combat them. Easily countered. If you first pick Zed, be ready to see plenty of Lissandras and other counter picks. You still have potential to kill these champions, but they can easily negate your ult. Roaming is your best bet, as you'll have a higher chance to pick up kills in other lanes. Item counters. Most AP champs will rush Zhonyas, picking up a Seeker's Arm Guard and Stopwatch early on. Mid to late, even AD champs will pick up a Stopwatch, building into GA later on. As mentioned before, constantly keep track of enemies' purchases, and enemies without defensive items should be your first priority. You risk an all AD comp. Since there's always a high chance of mid laners going AP, there's a good chance you'll end up with a full AD comp, especially if you insta-lock Zed. Games are still winnable, but if the enemy starts stacking armor and your team falls slightly behind, it becomes an uphill battle. Black Cleaver and Armor Pen items will be necessary later on. Vulnerable without W. Your W is everything in laning phase, a gap closer, escape, and safe harass. While it's down, you are extremely vulnerable, especially being a melee champ. Only use W if you know where the enemy jungler is or if they're a low threat. You must play extremely passive while it's down. Skill shot reliant. If you miss your Qs, you'll potentially lose a kill, and it may even cost you your life. It's important to slow them with E Shadow or Duskblade to increase your chance of landing Q. High skill cap. It will take a lot of games to master Zed, so don't be discouraged if you haven't figured him out in the first few games. Try to master his laning phase first, as practicing his main harass combo and maintaining high CS will give you the foundation to slowly snowball the game. Hard CC. A single CC can make you completely useless. Edge of Night or Mercurial Scimitar are great options. Tanks. Since you're mostly about burst, tanky champs make it hard for Zed to shine. A Black Cleaver third item is a solid option. Before we go over specific matchups, let's cover what makes a champ easy, medium, or hard for Zed. Also note, since Zed is a melee champ, you will pretty much need to play passive in every matchup early until level 3 when you can effectively trade with your WEQ combo. An easy lane means there is 0 to no threat. Zed can safely farm and he has a high kill potential, especially at level 6. A medium matchup is usually skill based. You will need to land your W Shadow Harass consistently or you will lack pressure. Dodging and hitting skill shots will determine the winner in these lanes. Heavy poke can make it difficult to stay full health. Hard matchups usually mean they can counter your death mark with a single ability. They push you in hard, restricting your roam potential and forcing you to hit under tower. They have high sustain, which means you can't slowly poke them down before you're all in. Although rarely seen mid, tanks are quite difficult to kill. Easy lanes. Akali, just poke her down with EWQ combo and all in her. Respect her Q, but since it's low range, it's not much of a threat. Stand behind minions to avoid her E. Back off when she's in her shroud. Go aggressive when it's down. You have potential to dodge both her ult dashes with W and ult. Anivia, she will struggle to damage you or hit her slow moving Q while you have W and R up. Poke her with your combo and eventually all in her. She's an easy kill if her egg passive is down. Level 6 she will most likely just push, so may be best to just roam. Annie, as long as you keep your distance, her spells lack range to poke you safely. With 1 or 2 shadow combos, you can all in her. Watch for her stun, which is 4 full bars under her health bar. Usually pushing her in will force her to use spells to CS, and use her stun on minions. Buy Hexdrinker and Mercs and she won't be able to one-shot you, which is pretty much her main purpose. Karthus, your mobility will make it hard for him to land Q. 1 or 2 shadow combos and you can all in him. You can dodge his ult with your ult. Watch out for his wall slow as it's usually followed up by a gank. Kassadin, his MR passive and Q shield is useless against you. You can zone him from minions and will be forced to Q minions or miss plenty of CS. Push him into tower and harass him, just be mindful of the enemy jungler. Even when he's 6, he has to play safe. If he ever rift walks in, all in him. Katarina, her dashing makes it hard to land Qs, but your mobility will make it difficult for her to deal damage from daggers. Harass her with your WEQ combo and don't let her get close enough to QU. Punish her when she wastes abilities, as you'll have the advantage with your strong autos. If she ever ults, you can ult her, as your invulnerability will negate a lot of her burst damage. Lux, her low mobility makes it an easy kill if she ever wastes her Q snare. You still need to respect her E poke damage. WE combo her when you can and eventually all in. You can dodge her ult damage with your W or ult. Orianna, you need to respect her QW poke, but go for your combo when you can. You can dodge her ult with your W and your ult. Respect her autos since they do a lot of damage. Veigar, stand behind minions and he can't land Q. His W is easy to dodge, as it's telegraphed before it comes down. If he uses his E stun, you can W shadow out. You can dodge his ult with yours, but it must be quick. Xerath, you will have to respect his poke, but you need to go for harass when your W is up. At level 6 you should look to all in him. Either ult him if he gets too close, or poke him a little bit with WEQ combos, then all in. Early boots can make it easier to dodge his skill shots. Ziggs, don't stay close to minions or he will poke you with Q splash damage. 1 to 2 combos and you can all in him. You can dodge his ult with your W and ult. Zoe, her Q does splash damage, so don't stay too close to minions. Stay away from walls as she will use them to gain distance on her E bubble. Her ult telegraphs where she will reappear, allowing you to land easy Qs. She can be tricky to deal with depending on her W spells, which is displayed next to her HP bar, so play accordingly. Medium matchups. Ahri, just respect her poke, especially her charm, and use your WEQ combo when you can. Her mobility at 6 will make it hard to land your Qs. Don't let her poke you down or she can all in you. Right after she's dashed is probably the best bet to land Qs, since there is a delay before she can dash again. Aurelion Soul, he will most likely just perma push. Don't W onto him unless his Q is down. Respect his extended W star range as he will win extended trades. Your best bet is to all in him level 6 after a bit of WEQ poke damage. His main danger comes from constant pushing and then roaming, so ward up and ping to warn teammates. Azir, his Q plus auto poke will hurt, so respect his long range. The key to winning is landing your WEQ combo and all in him. At level 6 he has to respect you, poke him a little then all in him. Cassio, avoid her Q or back off if it hits you, as she will spam E and then win the trade. Use WEQ combo to poke her and only go in when you have enough to kill her, or she can quickly turn on you. She can stop you from using W or ult with her ground W poison. She can ult backwards instantly after you ult for a free stun, so be careful. Ekko, dodge his Q, at least his return Q, and go for a WEQ combo when it's down. Try to avoid his third passive proc. He can cancel your ult damage with his ult. Be cautious when he's off map, as he might be charging his W to stun you. Don't trade while he has W shield. He can dodge your Qs with his E dash. He's not a huge threat, but he's not easy to kill. Fizz, his E is his main threat and it costs a lot early on, so bait it out using a W to dodge. If he ever wastes E, harass him with your combo. He can cancel your ult with his E jump. He wins auto trades with his W damage. You can dodge his fish ult with W, and even if it hits you, just ult right before it knocks you up to avoid the CC and damage. Galio, his tankiness from Aftershock and CC makes it hard to burst him. If you use WEQ combo to harass him, play passive while your W is down, or he can dash in and combo you. If he ever tries to combo you first, use W to dodge his dash. He will likely push the lane with Q and his AoE auto, then threaten to roam with his ult. Ward and ping teammates if you predict this. Malzahar, try to land a Q to remove his shield, before you use your WEQ combo. If he uses E on minions, you can go for a hard trade since he will lose most of his damage. His main threat comes after 6 as he can flash ult and kill you, especially if followed up by a gank. QSS will cancel his ult, but try to finish a Dustblade or Yumi's before that, or you'll lack damage. Neeko, avoid standing behind minions or her E route will travel faster and last longer if it hits you, and then she will follow up with her triple Q damage. She will be difficult to land combos on with her W juking potential. Her ult can be timed to shield your ult damage. Just avoid getting rooted and focus on landing the WEQ combos. Syndra, you have potential to dodge all her damage by dodging skill shots and using your ult to cancel hers, but this is most likely skill dependent. WEQ combo harass her and respect her when your W is down. All in her after you've poked her. Merc treads are great to resist poke and CC. Talon, avoid his second W rake as he will try to follow up with Q and then auto to proc his bleed damage. This combo can kill you early even if you have around 80% HP. You must maintain pressure by landing WEQ combos and only W in when he is low enough to all in. His main threat will probably come from his insane roams with his E-wall jumps, ward and ping teammates. Twisted Fate, he can push the lane early, forcing you to CS on the tower. Respect his pick a card and harass him when it's down. A good TF can be difficult, but it's generally much easier for Zed to dominate. You can dodge his W pick a card with your ult. His main threat will be after 6 when he just perma pushes and he will constantly look for lanes to ult. So just ping teammates when he's 6 and try to ward behind river walls. There's a good chance he'll build quite tanky with Roa, Zhonya's and maybe even Ninja Tabai's. Yasuo, this can be extremely difficult against a good Yasuo, so it's mostly skill based. Try to proc his shield by landing a Q, then follow up with your WEQ combo. Try to bait out his wind wall before you go for a combo. His dashing through minions will make it difficult to land Q, so try to land it when there's almost no minions left to dash. At level 6 you can all in him after some poke, doing everything you can to dodge his tornado. You can dodge his tornado Q with ultimate. Hard matchups. Aurelia, her Q dashes on minions makes it extremely hard to land Qs. Avoid her E stun or she can all in you. Her W shield will negate a lot of your WEQ combo as well as your ult damage. If she survives your ult combo, she can all in you with her ult. Very hard to 1v1 her. Best to play passive, wave clear when possible and look for kills elsewhere. LeBlanc, she can bully you hard early. Landing your WEQ combo is essential to maintain pressure or she can walk all over you. It will be hard to land Qs with her W movement, so trade when it's down or try to predict when she'll return. Even at 6, you will struggle to land Qs while she has W and R up. If she hits chain, you can ult right before it procs to avoid the root and damage. Mercs and Hexstringer can make it hard for her to burst you. Lysandra, she will constantly push with Q, so don't stand behind minions or you'll take splash damage. Even if you blink to her with W, she can just W root you. Being rooted means you can't get close enough for more autos and she can kite you. Watch out for her E claw as it's usually followed up by a gank. At level 6, if you ult her, she can just ult herself and cancel your damage. Your only hope is to consistently hit WEQ combos and keep up in farm. Roam and look for kills elsewhere. Lucian, he has everything in his kit to destroy your early game and stop you from snowballing. Q poke, wave clear and dash to avoid most of your damage. You'll need a jungle gank to punish him overextending or he will abuse you on the tower. If you make it to level 6 with almost even CS and XP, this is no longer a hard lane. Rise. He can wave clear fast, forcing you to mainly focus on CSing and restricting your chances to roam. Don't stand close to minions to avoid his Q plus E splash damage. He has a shield to negate a lot of your combo. If you ever ult him, he can just snare you, shield himself and use movement speed to run away, so it's best to only ult him if he wastes his snare. Vladimir. His HP sustain will make it hard to poke him down. Avoid his 2 stacked Q as he gains empowered healing and damage. He can cancel your ult damage with his pull. Executioner's Calling will negate a lot of his healing, but you still want to get 1 or 2 of your main items. Best to push lane and look for kills elsewhere. Early game. Focus on landing Q to poke. Best to hit them directly or you will lose damage through minions, and using Q to last hit minions that you can't safely auto. When you hit level 2, the safest option is W for early ganks, and you can even try landing double Qs. It's at level 3 that you begin to apply pressure, going for those WEQ combos. You really want to hit those double Qs to proc electrocute safely, or in some cases if it's safe enough, to blink to your shadow and auto them. Depending on the lane, you can play aggressively, pushing some champs into tower. You can hang around river, and this will force a lot of mids to spam ping their team while you're out of vision, applying pressure. If you get ganked, use your W to juke or blink over walls to escape, but most junglers will wait for your W to go on cooldown before they gank. At level 6, you now have insane burst potential. Look to 1v1 your laner or roam bot, top, or even the enemy jungler, and look for kills there. Sometimes if the enemy bot tower is almost gone, look to dive the enemy bot lane, and even if they back off, just take the tower with your team for the first tower bonus gold. Mid game. If you're ahead and your team is behind, split pushing is your best option. The enemy will send at least 1 to deal with you, or they risk losing towers since you take them pretty fast. This is your chance to try and kill 1 or more enemies. If they send 2 or more, the rest of your team can take objectives, pick up farm, and even win a fight on their own with a numbers advantage. Even if you die but you still get a kill, this is worth. If most of the game is even, grouping around for dragons, heralds and barons are in your favor, and you want to try and delete the enemy ADC or any other squishy. You have potential to zone since you're a huge threat, and many carriers will fear walking into tight areas. Just don't instantly engage, especially if there's hard CC that can make you useless. Wait for the enemy abilities to be used, then pick your target. You also have great epic monster steal potential with your combo burst, as well as the escape potential, so go for those plays as it can literally win you the game. If you're behind, you want to farm side lanes, using your W to get away safely, and even your ultimate, doing your best to juke and waste their time. Late game, pretty much the same as mid game. You'll have huge potential to one-shot at this stage, however, enemies will most likely have the defensive items to deal with you. Look to catch out enemies like squishy supports who are trying to ward, or greedy ADCs and mids who overextend when clearing waves. Split pushing is still an option, and if you aren't dealt with, you can backdoor for the win. I would still recommend grouping, as it could be hard to coordinate with your team, especially in solo queue. You'll find that most of the times your team will get caught out, or either hard engaged by the enemy team. Your experience with ZED will determine how well you do. ZED is one of the most rewarding champs to master. Some games he will feel completely broken, and other games absolutely useless. Even if you don't intend on maining ZED, having him in your champ pool will be useful if your team ever needs an AD mid. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this guide as much as I did making it. If you want me to make an ultimate guide on one of your favorite champs, let me know in the comments below. I'm Zoose, and I'll see you guys in the next video.